Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Columbus This Week with Trevor and Eric, and we have a boatload of events, construction roundup, features, a whole bunch of cool stuff's going on. A lot of it, I guess, maybe it's kind of tech. We have some good tech stories, I think, and then there's just a whole bunch of stuff going on in Columbus. So,
Yep, ton of community stuff, quite a bit of tech news. It's a happening week. How you doing today, Eric?
not too bad. I'm glad that it's finally heading towards fall weather. I'm tired of this global warming stuff. So
I don't think global warming is like making a 5-degree difference yet. So I don't think
I don't know.
it's so high weather.
All right. Speaking of global warming and 5-degree difference, so as a follow up to our story we ran a couple weeks ago about the mayor of Chicago doing the what was it called, the making it so that every student has to have a post-secondary thing lined up,
A plan.
before they graduate, or else they can't graduate. So you brought up that in Chicago they also have a new requirement, which I'm actually in favor of, but that all students have to take a computer science class or like a programming class. So just wanted to throw that in there for I guess like an intro, like, oh hey, by the way, they're also implementing that. So
Yeah, to sort of lay the ground for this, we'll of course link the article too. But as of last year, Chicago implemented a requirement. So this is before the post-secondary requirement even.
Okay.
It's like any other college requirement where in order to graduate, you have to take a specific class that qualifies, and you have to take a programming class.
yeah.
I'm not in favor of this for the exact same. Like we've tread this ground before during the Chicago feature, but I'm not a fan of mandating these kind of things.
Well, yeah, but how's that any different than mandating people take math or physics or something?
I mean, I guess your argument is that it shouldn't be an elective.
I'm just saying they have a curriculum. Like you just have to say that they shouldn't be able to make a curriculum then, because they're at some level they're mandating some sort of course at every something. So why say like why take gym class? Like you have to take gym class. That's stupid. That's
I mean, I think the gym class argument is fair because I mean I think it does, the way it's taught and the way it's used in society. I think it still makes sense as an elective. It doesn't make sense to have it be a core requirement. Let's be honest. This idea that everyone's job is going to require programming in like 20 years is fucking ridiculous. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, which is funny because I've actually made that exact opposite argument, but not worth getting into a big discussion here because then we won't get into everything else we have.
Yeah, so just be aware that in order to,
just be aware some requirements are on their way.
if you live in Chicago, you're planning on raising your kids in Chicago, they're going to have to learn to type on a keyboard and compile Hello World.
Yeah.
Because those classes are very rigorous, let's be honest.
That's true too. All right, so moving on to events, I actually was able to conjure up a good variety of events that cover a wide spectrum of things. So the first one though, that I'm going to talk about, well, I guess mention or whatever. So if you're not familiar with, because you either just moved to Columbus, you're a hermit, or you don't own a computer, or you don't know any, like, I don't know how you could possibly not have heard of this, but this upcoming weekend is Highball. So they shut down the street. Like before, they used to shut down the Short North, like all of High Street right there. But now they just shut down the area in front of the convention center, which is fine. It makes it better for everybody else. But on the 20th, 21st, and I think they do stuff on Sunday the 22nd. They have like a huge block party. They have like a Halloween fashion show and all this stuff, and it's a ton of fun. It's a little bit of pain getting there if you don't live somewhere where you could like hop on the bus or walk or whatever. But that's a lot of fun.
Yeah, if you're going there, plan on taking an Uber. There's no good place to put your car that's within like 2 miles of this event, because there are just tens of thousands of, well, not tens of thousands, but there are many.
No, there are. It's a huge.
Well,
huge
I'd say there's
party.
many thousands of people, but not like 20,000+.
I don't know. It's pretty, like over the whole weekend. Like they get a ton. I don't know. You'd have to.
Anyways,
yeah.
you should go to the event. It's cool. I mean, the main purpose of it, as you can tell by the name, it's like the fashion show. It's called Highball.
Yeah. On their website, they said 30,000.
Wow.
People. Yeah. I'm not surprised, man, because when I've gone the last
Yeah, we both went last year.
Yeah, so we went last year, and I went. I think the year, like a year, and not the year before, but the year before that. So.
Wait, is 30,000 total attendees? Because I could believe that.
Yeah, for like the whole weekend.
Okay, that makes more
Yeah.
sense. I'm saying it.
Yeah, I didn't mean like per day.
Yeah, at any one given time, I don't think there's like more than 8,000 people.
But I mean, they do. I mean, at night especially, they draw in a huge crowd. And you can check out the website, which we have linked. We'll have linked to. You can just look at the pictures, and it's a really cool event. So, and as of like Monday or something, I think tickets were $5. So,
yeah, I think they double in price though if you've missed out on the early bird at this point. So
yeah, but it might be like 10.
It's probably $10.
It's still worth it if you've never gone. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, the fashion show is cool. They have like there was a Disney contest. Like you had somebody had like a really cool what's her name? The villain from Little Mermaid.
I don't know.
The
big evil octopus lady.
Yeah, her. Like,
yeah, I don't know
Anyways, it was a great, amazing costume that probably took hundreds of hours that I would never do, but it's cool to see.
Yeah. Okay. So
Ursula, that's it.
Yeah. So that's coming up this weekend on the 16th at Columbus State. They're having a forum on education. So if you're interested in talking to some other like-minded folks at Columbus State, I think that might be kind of cool. It's from 6 to 7:30, so it's after work, normal work, like the normal 8 to 5 kind of day. So that's coming up on the 17th. There is it's in Bexley. We have the link here, but I don't know off the top of my head where the event is, but I know it's in Bexley. But they're having a digital marketing 101 for your business. So if you're thinking about starting a small business, or you already have a business and your marketing sucks and you just fired your marketing person, you could probably go to this. So that looked kind of cool. 7 to 8:30 p.m. on the 17th. And then on the 18th, Trevor, about like almost every city has like a sister city.
Just Columbus?
Yeah. Yeah.
What's our sister city?
I don't know. There's a few, but
what? Then we don't have a sister city.
No, we do because we have a sister city event. Let me just double check with the city. Well, I don't care. It doesn't matter.
I'm not buying your nonsense.
No, there really is.
Okay, tell us the event.
So it's okay. So for this one, so we have more than one, as you should know. There's we have a sister city in Brazil, which I can't pronounce the name. Dresden in Germany is another sister city, and then
not Munich.
No, and then Hefei, I don't know if that's pronounced right, in China. So they have this. They're having this happy hour in Franklinton. It's like a cultural exchange. So what they do is they have like people from their sister city come live in Columbus, and come here for like a while and like share their culture and all that kind of stuff. So I think this happy hour is like to meet those people and then talk to people from another country. So it's at Land Grant in Franklinton, so that looks kind of cool. So that's on the 18th from 4 to 10 p.m. And then one of our council members, Elizabeth Brown, who is the chair of the environmental committee, is hosting a public hearing to review some proposed changes to the city's like trash collection code. That's on the 19th, and that's from 5 to 6:30 p.m. So
sounds killer.
Yeah, I would love to talk to her. I'm this close to literally going outside and picking up trash. So I went to the School of Rock at the Ohio Theater, like the play that happened yesterday, which was great. So as an aside, if you're looking for events, the Ohio Theater and the Palace Theater, I think is what it's called. Those events are a lot of fun, like to go see those plays, and then you're not paying like $1 million actors. You're paying people who, like aren't rich, but they're doing like great performances and stuff. But anyway, like we were walking down, like Livingston Avenue, like just turned a brief right, and there was just piles of trash on the sidewalk. And why isn't the city picking this crap up? It doesn't make any sense. But anyway, I'm about to just go do it myself because I'm tired of seeing it.
Well, I do know some of the trash you're never ever going to be able to fix. Like, there needs to be a cultural change,
right?
Like anything near OSU during football season, it all.
Oh yeah. But I'm just saying, this is like just sitting there, and like if they just came and cleaned it up, it would look fine the next day, and probably for like a month or two at least.
Well, the problem is, why is that mess there?
Well, because there's a bunch of homeless people throwing trash, and then a bunch of idiots driving down the street throwing trash out. All right. Anyway, so Trevor, we were talking before the show about one of our new segments we're gonna do. So we kind of roll after events. We go into a community, and one of the continued themes that we have is there's always like some new construction going on. So actually, we're gonna just do kind of like a run through with construction. So called the construction roundup.
Yeah, we're gonna TLDR construction.
Yeah.
Eric's just gonna he's just gonna tell you what's being built, and I'm
Yeah.
gonna sit here and
and scoff at all the new stuff. Okay, so just so we'll have links to all this stuff. Almost all of it. We usually get our construction roundup news from Columbus Underground because they do a pretty good job of covering it. So we're gonna just give people the links to some of the interesting stuff that's going on. So. In Grandview, there's going to be a new distillery opening up called High Bank. So that looks pretty cool. 17,000 square feet. Yep, cool. That's cool. And then on the Near East side, so some of the so in case you don't know, Nationwide Children's Hospital has like a master facilities plan, and they're putting together they're doing like a $700 million renovation. New buildings, all this stuff on Livingston Avenue, but then on the Near East side, they're putting up new offices and all that kind of stuff. And scheduled to be completed by the end of 2018. So that is cool. More jobs. There's an upscale Indian bistro opening up soon in downtown Columbus, right on High, and I think that street Spring. I plan on going that. I drive by that building all the time. Looks cool. There is plans in the mix for a kind of half warehouse. It looks like an old warehouse on Oak Street on the Near East side. So they're going to renovate that and turn it into a new market. It's called the East Market or something similar to that, which I think sounds cool. There is, and then I think last but not least is the actual. Nope, there's one other thing, but. So the convention center, this one we might even want to debate a little bit because I think it's really dumb, but so the last thing is we're actually going to give you a link to a roundup that includes all the roundup stuff. So, but it includes more than that. It's not just what we have, and some of these are like things that we may have already mentioned that are being built, but they're. It's like more pictures and stuff like, hey, all this stuff's being built or it has been built. So, they talk about like they show things like the Ohio Veterans Museum and all that stuff. So, okay, so here's the other one, Trevor, and this one kind of makes me mad. So, the convention center. So they've been doing all the renovations with the convention center.
yeah.
So apparently, they are doing a $18 million 650 space parking garage.
Oh boy.
Why? Just don't add parking garages. Stop doing it. It just drives me crazy.
You're right. I think what we need instead of parking garages, Eric, is we need to widen the streets for on the street parking.
No, we need to remove lanes on the streets. I know exactly what we need to do, and it's to take the parking lane, move it in 2 or 3 feet, and then make that a bike lane, and then we'd be good to go. But anyway, so it just makes me mad because it's like, think about that, $18 million for a 650 space parking garage. Like, why not spend that money and just not be dumb?
Just so our audience is aware, I actually got to drive half of Eric's commute during actually not even during, but before rush hour traffic, and I completely
because it was Friday.
I completely understand why he hates cars now.
Yeah.
It was a Wednesday.
Oh yeah, but even it's sometimes
it was his commute is the most miserable thing on the planet. I completely understand why he just wants to like nuke Honda or whatever now.
Yeah. Well, it's not normally. So I usually leave work early, because most people get out at 5. I usually leave at 4. The vast majority of the time, my commute's like 25 minutes, and it's not bad, but I don't know what it was, but every once in a while you just get screwed. Everybody decides to leave at the same time. So, but yeah, so the cars suck. So at least and now you get it. So,
well, I get that you're working. I mean, the one, or I guess the biggest, determining factor in somebody's happiness is how shitty their commute is. And, and I don't envy you in that regard.
Yeah, I really though it's almost never that bad. It's just once a month, maybe once every 2 months, I just get super screwed, and it just takes longer than it always. Like it goes from a 25-minute drive to like 45 to 50 minutes every random day.
So like you just channel the rage that you build up in that 45 minutes, and it just
into the podcast.
It keeps you running for the next month of podcasts.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
Like we're learning a lot today.
I almost now going the opposite way, like out of downtown, I almost never have a problem. It's like 20 minutes to get from the south side all the way up to all the way up to where I work. So that's not too bad. But okay, so I think that's pretty much the construction roundup. So
well, I did have one other thing for not so much construction, but opening.
Okay.
A new brewery, as if we don't have enough already, opened in Columbus, called Pretentious Barrel House. I actually went there yesterday.
How was it?
It's good. They have all the best beers. They have nothing but great beers.
I feel like when you say all the best beers, and I can see you and you're smiling, that when you say all the best beers, they're all sours and they're all really gross.
So let me tell you this company's logo first.
Okay.
Or sorry, their slogan.
Okay.
In all like giant font in fancy letters, it's making sours on purpose.
Oh man. Yeah, never going there. They should immediately bomb that place.
I even bought a half a liter bomber that I'm saving.
Oh god. Oh. I'm just like shivering thinking about how gross it is.
Like their normal beer, because they actually have 3 beers even though they have 6, because 4 of their beers are the same beer, just styled differently.
Oh man,
that beer I think you would like because it's not really a sour, and then the other 2 are good beers.
Yeah, first sour I ever had, I thought something was wrong with it, and then yeah.
Turns out there's living bacteria in that, making your beer better, Eric.
Well, no, it's like that in pretty much every good beer. Like if you get really good Belgians and stuff, there's still like some yeast.
I don't think IPAs are living.
Maybe not them, but like Belgians and
or
stuff.
like pale ales in general. I don't think are alive. Like everything is dead.
Everything everywhere. Yeah.
It's you're just drinking like millions of little bacterial corpses.
Yeah. Okay. And so speaking of pretentiousness, this is probably this is not pretentious, but
I just want to roll it back for a second.
Yeah.
You don't have any comments on the name Pretentious Barrel House?
It's not even like funny because it's like trying to it's like trying to make fun of hipsters.
Two on the nose,
but it's not. Yeah, I think it misses the mark. It's just not.
Gotcha.
Okay. So we recently got an IKEA. And when you get an IKEA, the next thing you get is an installation called Topgolf. So Trevor, have you ever been to Topgolf?
No.
Okay. So believe it or not, Topgolf, the only time I went in DC, it was actually kind of cool. So at least there, so they have so you've been to like a driving range before?
Yes.
Okay. So imagine a driving range, but then like 2 stories and like a huge like opening and stuff, and then instead of just like driving the range and like seeing how far you can get, they have like targets, and it's like, if you like play skee ball or something, like they have like the 50, 100,
yeah,
like that. Now it's not like lined up like that, but they have like all these different like pretty much scores. So you actually go there and you get like huge buckets of golf balls or whatever, and you just play with your friends. So you actually like score. So there's an actual purpose for going to the driving range and whatever, and then you get beer. So, but anyway, there's a rumor right now that we might be getting a Topgolf. So it's kind of fun. It's like if you go bowling once in a while, like you don't really like it, but the one time you go, it's like, okay, that wasn't that bad.
That sounds like something you do once in like 5 years, maybe.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, it's like it's cool that we might, it's just another thing it's more jobs, people spend money. That's cool. So.
All right. So we moving on to community news proper?
Yes, I think, which is not a whole lot.
All right, Eric. So first up in community news, we have a story about roundabouts and the police.
Oh God, I know where this is going.
And the police's attempts to educate the public and to make lines clearer. And generally, like, the police are throwing 101 strategies at the roundabouts, particularly the roundabouts in Hillard, to try and figure out how to make people not drive really dumb in roundabouts.
I cannot, for the life of me, understand how you do not understand how to drive through the roundabout. Like maybe a very first time you've ever gone through one and you're 16 years old and you just got your license, or maybe you're 15 and a half and you're on your learning permit. Maybe then I can understand. But if you've been driving, like you could just follow the car in front of you. Like what's so hard about it?
All right, well, let me walk you through some of the problems people have with roundabouts because
each one of these is going to be like a knife to my heart because it's just gonna kill me. So
a research study was done by the city of Hilliard to try and figure out why people can't function.
So they wasted a bunch of money
in their roundabouts. All right, so here are some of the issues. The first major issue is driver error. People are very concerned about other people messing up in the roundabouts, as you might expect.
Okay.
Second, visual clutter. There's too much stuff on the road and they can't interpret it.
So they're dumb. And their brains are slow. Okay.
Yeah. So and along with that is
these are probably the same people that text and drive and get in car wrecks and they ruin it for the rest of us.
Next, performance anxiety. One person is quoted as saying, "I'm worried that an impatient driver is going to honk me into doing something stupid."
Just don't do it. That doesn't make any sense at all. Like, did they interview somebody and they were like, "Oh man, I'm real scared of what this one person in a car behind me who I'll never see again in my lifetime is going to say about me going into this stupid roundabout." Like, is that what people are thinking?
If just to make you feel a little better,
I think
Eric,
I'm gonna have an aneurysm.
Just to make you feel a little better, we have some good numbers in regards to these roundabouts.
Okay.
So there have been no serious injuries since the Hilliard roundabouts have been implemented, the 3 roundabouts.
All right. So
and fewer than 15% of all crashes that have happened in these roundabouts resulted in any injuries. All of them were minor injuries.
Yep. So here's the good thing. What this shows to me is that the roundabouts work. Now, let me explain why. So there's a guy. I know one of our listeners who I know personally is going to be like, yeah, I know that guy. So and maybe you do too, because I probably mentioned it. So there's a guy, Jeff Speck. He's like, at least nationally famous. He's pretty renowned for fixing things like like walkable neighborhoods, like all that kind of stuff. Some of the things that I hate, or whatever. Some of the things that I talk about a lot. So one of the things he mentioned in his book was like, so when you're trying to build like a walkable neighborhood, people put, maybe you start out with like 1 lane and then there's a bunch of traffic or whatever, and you make 2 lanes or whatever, and then it's like 45 miles per hour, and then people just speed down the road and all this stuff. And then what they found was when you went back to making, frequent stops, the road's smaller, lowering the speed limit, having a lot more pedestrians around, people drive more safely because they're unsure of. They don't, like, most people don't want to run into somebody because that's a huge problem
For everyone, yeah.
for everybody. So the vast, 99.9997% of people are very not trying to hit people, right? So when you do that, like, people don't want to hit people. When you make the road a little more unsafe in terms of like objects that are around you. So people pay more attention, et cetera, et cetera. So I think what we're finding here with these roundabouts is that there's a whole bunch of idiots who don't know how to drive, and then this roundabout's like this big scary thing, and so it makes them drive a lot more safer versus just blowing through it like they would. Because if it was just like a 1 lane 45 mile per hour road, and then they just had, like, let's say they had a red light at the end of it, and then there's a left turn or a right turn or something, I guarantee the accident rate would be through the roof compared to the roundabout, because people just think that they're safe going 45 miles an hour and they could just blow through it, and they're probably dumb idiots anyway. But then also you have, when you build that roundabout, all these dumb idiots like who normally don't want to run into people are like, oh, what do I do? It's a roundabout. And then they slow down, they stop, and they do stuff. So much to my anger, they're dumb and they don't know how to go through the roundabout, but it does have its intended effect of slowing people who don't know how to drive down. So I'll say that.
So I think somebody would like to weigh in on your opinion a little bit.
Okay.
And by someone, I mean one of the editors for the Dispatch.
Okay.
His opinion on the matter. Aesthetics don't enter into these studies, but I find the roundabouts to be the epitome of car-centered ugliness.
I do agree with that.
The continuous moving traffic and the noise make them unpleasant.
Yep.
People like to stand on corners, but I can't imagine anyone wanting to spend time in a roundabout.
Completely agree. But the alternative is basically a 2 lane 45-mile-per-hour road. Because I used to drive through. I know at least some of the roundabouts they're talking about in Hilliard. I used to drive through. Like I've driven through those roads before they had roundabouts and stuff. And unfortunately, the alternative at those locations isn't any sort of urban development. It's just a 45-mile-per-hour heavy traffic, people zooming through. So nobody's standing on that corner anyway.
I think he's arguing that that he would prefer four ways.
Yeah, and then so he's dumb, basically. Because, I mean, what he's arguing for is killing people at the end of the day, because that's what's going to happen. So,
all right. Well, should we move on to our next topic?
Yeah. So this one's probably, well, we're going to agree, so it's probably not going to take up as much time as something where we disagree, or maybe it's not going to be as interesting, but if you want to go over the...
All right, sure. So semi-local news. This is coming from Oxford, Ohio, and since it's coming from Oxford, what else could it be about other
Miami University?
Than the Miami University.
Okay.
I can't do that with a straight face.
Yeah.
I can't say the Ohio State University with a straight face either.
You gotta have the emphasis on D. You're gonna be like D.
God damn.
You gotta puff up your chest too.
Yeah. have to. I was at a wedding where that happened. Like the person ordaining the wedding was talking about the university they met, and he's like, they met at the Ohio State.
Oh man, I just say Ohio State.
They can't hold it in. Like OSU graduates just can't hold it in.
At least they have pride.
God bless. So, anyways, coming from Miami, there's a rape case that is currently in progress. Actually, let me give a little bit of background on this story.
Yep. So,
Miami University's policy on what constitutes rape, according to the student handbook, is any intoxication, no matter the amount. So, if you like
looked at a beer the wrong way, you're intoxicated, and if you have sex, then it's rape.
If you had a sip of Bud Light and somebody has sex with you, they raped you.
Okay.
That's just cut and dry from the student manual. That is how it works in Miami University. So so the long and short of this case is two people had sex, and both were drinking to some extent, and one of them complained about it, and so the other person was suspended for 2 years. Now they're fighting it in court.
Okay.
So this has made it through two courts so far, and now is at the Ohio Supreme Court. And I guess I just wanted to get your opinion on this, because long term, if this case escalates anymore, it looks like it's going to. Title IX is going to go to the SCOTUS.
Yeah,
the U.S. SCOTUS.
SCOTUS being the Supreme Court
of the United States.
Yeah, yeah. So it is now. I will say it's kind of tricky because, it seems like if you don't have any. In lieu of actual, evidence, something I've seen, and I can't confirm, this is just an anecdotal experience, but some of these situations with that are considered rape almost always involve alcohol, and there's no evidence. Like, if the person who was raped, male or female, so I'm not getting into that, if the person who was raped doesn't go to the police and do the proper, or go to some, I don't know what all the procedures are, but I know that generally you go to the police or whatever, and then you have tests done. So if you don't do that, and then 2 weeks later you're like, yeah, somebody raped me, the person who is being accused of rape often has no, even if it goes to court or trial and they're declared innocent, the university can still say that, yeah, you were doing something wrong, and kick you out and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of that. I think. Well, what's interesting about this is that, or with this,
do you mind if I provide more background? I was just thinking about this, and I realized there's a lot of clarification I think needs
go ahead.
All right, so a few things. First of all, when we're talking about rape, we're not talking about a crime here, which I know sounds crazy, but we're talking about university policy, not criminal law.
Right.
So universities can and under the or after Obama's Dear Colleague letter had the onus upon them to engage in their own rape investigations and deal with it separately than the justice system. And of course, this recently Betsy DeVos said she was going to repeal.
And it's worth mentioning, I guess, Miami University is a private school, so it's a little bit different too versus
Yeah,
a public school.
but I do think that's where their policy is coming from, because you didn't really see these laws pop up all over the place before this. But anyways, so the Dear Colleague letter is sort of where this is coming from, and this is completely separate from the justice system. The reason that they're in courts now is that the university decided to implement the suspension based on an internal decision. So there's no actual court involved at any point. They just decided to suspend, and this student, is suing because he thinks it's a violation of a civil right. There's no criminal. There's no criminal case at all here. And then just a little more background on the story. So the witnesses that were supposed to represent the university have decided not to. I guess, how would you put it?
Show up for the hearing or
yeah,
go to the hearing?
yeah. So they're not participating in the trial. So the university doesn't have any witnesses now, and basically, what it's going to come down to is whether or not it's prudent for a university to disallow sexual activity if anyone has been drinking at all.
Yeah. So, and again, this I think is different between a public and private school. I actually kind of fall on the side of I don't have a problem with them disallowing it as a private institution, because at the same time, like for example, like BYU is like one of the case examples. Like it's a dry campus, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, and I tend to agree with you.
Yeah, so I do agree with that. Although at the same time, I think it's kind of crazy. If you even have a sip of alcohol and you have sex with somebody, it's considered rape. So I don't know. I mean, I guess they can do what they want, but
yeah. So here's my thought on it. Well, yeah, they should have that right. I do think the big problem is that it's not going to be enforced fairly.
Sure.
I think that's what it's going to come down to.
Yeah.
Because in this case, both people were drinking, and one person happened to make the claim to the university, and only the university.
Yeah.
And that's when it's going to be a problem.
Yeah, I mean, which obviously I have a problem with that, because when I was, I guess, speaking a little bit earlier, like most of the time, the cases of rape, it ends up being one party who says, "Oh, I was raped," and they may have been. I don't know. I'm not, making a blanket statement with that, but they say that I've been, one person says they've been raped, even if both have been drinking. It's like, well, you were both drinking, so I don't. If a university or whatever institution was to say, well, if you were both drinking and you both had sex, then you were both raped. Like that's what the standard should be if you're gonna say that. So if one person goes and complains, and again, maybe they were raped. I guess I'm kind of looking more at the side of, who knows? I don't know until somebody's proven guilty, right? So, it's like a word of mouth. If like two people just have sex and they were both drinking, and then somebody the next day or 2 days later, it's just like goes to the university and they says they were raped. Well, the other person, what's stopping them from making the exact same claim and then both students being expelled for rape or for violating this policy?
Yeah, but I don't think it tends to play out that way. If you're accused of rape, people tend to ignore. People would ignore if you claim rape. I will say though, as a practical matter, try to avoid having sex with people who you aren't sure
and you just met. That's not a good idea anyway.
Yeah.
But
try to make sure whoever you're having sex with is mentally stable, because there's nothing you can worst case, there's nothing you can do to avoid this, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. It's a private institution. In general, again, I'm not a constitutional law school, lawyer. I don't understand all the arguments being made. In fact, I don't think very many people do anyway. But, so on the surface of it, if a school wants to make the rule that if you have a sip of alcohol, don't have sex with anybody, and that it's good intentions in the sense that like they want to prevent those, because there's been a whole bunch of stories about rape and all this stuff. And it's really, really bad. And this isn't like the worst thing I've heard in terms of trying to prevent that, but I don't really know if it's a good policy, I guess. But
yeah, personally though, just engage in some risk management. Just manage your own risk.
Yeah,
All right. Well, is that it for community news?
I think so.
What a depressing topic to end on.
Yeah, maybe we should have saved Top Golf for after talking about that. Yeah, I mean, again, there's too many unknowns for this case. Who knows? It's going to be interesting to see because it's gonna matter for lots, universities nationwide.
Because I mean,
so.
ultimately, this is not a rape issue. This is a civil rights issue.
Yeah.
Because if this wasn't rape, like let's say the handbook,
Like I don't think they could get away with this at like Ohio State or a
Yeah.
public institution.
yeah, like let's say the handbook prohibits, I don't know, burning candles in your dorm, and burning candles in your dorm gets you expelled. Is that a violation of your civil rights?
Yeah. I mean, and
And what if it's only being what if you have evidence that it's being enforced selectively? Like, what if you have evidence that, I don't know, some certain subgroup, like let's say biology majors who burn candles never ever get expelled, but like engineers do.
yeah.
Then in that case, I think that's the direction the argument's going to go, and we're going to have to see how that plays out in the Supreme Court.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think so. We'll change gears here, moving to tech topics, and start with a cool, interesting topic. But I do have a problem with the description of the article. So I guess I'll read you the title here. Blue Origin CEO says we're taking tourists to space within 18 months. Trevor, do you happen to know who the CEO of Blue Origin is?
Well, I definitely do, but before you complained about this to me before the podcast, I had no idea. So why don't you tell the audience?
It's this one guy. You may have heard of him. He runs this company. You probably haven't heard of the company. It's named after the rainforest, the big rainforest in Brazil. Amazon, I think. So he's the CEO of Amazon. And I don't know if it's the rainforest or if it's the company that people buy books from or whatever.
Oh, the book company.
The book company.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay, anyway, so it's such a stupid article title. Because everybody, if you don't know who Jeff Bezos is, like, I just can't even. But anyway, so this was pretty interesting. So everybody knows about SpaceX. SpaceX, I think, gets a ton of press. But on the other spectrum, a little more low key, is Jeff Bezos' company, Blue Origin. So they're kind of doing the same sort of thing that SpaceX is doing. So Bezos and company are funneling millions and millions of dollars into more or less like a space race with SpaceX. And Bezos basically is saying we'll have the capability to take tourists to space in 2019. So that's pretty cool. Tech wise, it's just kind of out of the blue. That's something you would think you'd hear from Elon Musk. And
I do think it's very funny that we're seeing a second space race.
Yeah.
And a lot of people were really worried back when NASA's budget got cut. I don't remember if you
I was
remember
worried, yeah.
That space was dead and we would never see.
It is a valid concern.
I do think maybe it's a valid concern, but realistically, I think if there's market incentives, and I think there's just way too much opportunity in space for that not to be a profitable venture.
Yeah,
people at one point were paying $250,000 just to go up in space and come back down.
Right, and they weren't even they were just getting to not even low. I think low Earth.
Yeah, I think it was they were LEO traveling.
But well, part of the difficulty with starting a company that launches rockets, aside from all of the difficulty that goes into launching rockets and all of that stuff, it's an incredible investment in terms of money, right? So it's like, it's like why we don't see new IT infrastructure companies or something. Like once you get the established players in, they make too much money. They could snuff out competition. But the thing is, it just costs so much money to get started up that unless you have some sort of crazy CEO like Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos, nobody's really willing to put in the money to fund this, because to them there's just like, well, I could just spend money elsewhere.
I think the big thing though is that there weren't any established players. Like there was a market gap that somebody was bound to fill.
Don't discount Boeing and Lockheed Martin. Like they're not a joke. Yeah, they're inefficient and slow, but they do know what they're doing.
At this point, I don't think they're viable competitors to
I mean, maybe not
SpaceX.
right now, but when you're starting a rocket company and you look around, and Boeing and Lockheed Martin and some of the other defense contractors have been building things like the space shuttle and like these rockets and stuff, or at least contributing significantly to them. It's like, I mean, they just, and on top of building fighter jets and helicopters and all this other stuff,
I don't know.
stealth bombers,
I
like
think
they know
there's-
what they're doing. It's just
Right, but there's so much cruft and overhead you can undercut them. I don't think any
right. But you have to get like the perfect alignment of investment, a CEO who's not an idiot, and you have to because like SpaceX, for example, is well known for burning out engineers, right? Like you have to have some sort of charismatic leader who can come in and say, hey, don't, I'm gonna pay you not as much as you can make elsewhere, but you're gonna work on, sending people to Mars. That's my vision, et cetera, et cetera.
I don't know if how Elon Musk treats engineers is like the pass fail for the company succeeding. I think it helps, right?
No, but you need somebody who can build up that kind of spirit, because he can't afford to pay what like Boeing pays engineers. They just, I mean, they just can't afford that, and they can't afford paying. Even if you had those engineers, you can't afford to pay for them to not work 14 hours a day. So,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I do think eventually somebody would have overtaken them in the market if they weren't moving quickly enough.
yeah, I disagree, but anyway.
But I mean, it happened, so.
Well, no, right. But what I was saying is it's very difficult, and they're still not. I mean, they're still companies. They're still gonna. It's not like they're just gonna disappear tomorrow.
Well, I get that it's difficult, but I think it was inevitable. Like, if it wasn't Musk, it would have been someone eventually.
I mean, maybe. Who knows? We could have just went dead. Like maybe Bezos wasn't interested, and Musk cashed out after PayPal and said, "I'm done with it." I mean, you don't know. Then who's gonna do it? Like, I mean, there's only select few people who can start a rocket company. It takes a certain level of intelligence that the vast majority of people don't have, a certain level of funding, charisma, and drive that the vast majority of people don't have. I just think we're very lucky. I mean, why hasn't it happened anywhere else? I mean, no other country has private space companies like on the scale of like Bezos and Musk do.
I mean,
There's public-private partnerships,
no other company has the amount of VC that the U.S. has. Not even close. Like
but why not?
The U.S. startup community, like, and VC money. This is a very U.S. centric thing. Like owning your own business is a very U.S. centric thing.
Yeah.
I mean, there are some countries some first world countries that have a 50th of the startups per capita. The U.S. is very unique in that regard.
Yeah, exactly. But that's what I'm saying is like you have a unique amount of circumstances. Like,
but
if it's not just the money, like you also have to have the visionary leader who gets that money, who convinces investors that he's not going to just screw. Like, I mean, if at the end of the day, if you're an investor, you can invest money in a certain number of ways. Are you really going to bet money that some guy you don't know is going to start a successful rocket company? Like it's just most investors aren't going to look at that and say, oh, well, I'm pretty confident that this guy is going to start the successful rocket company, steal away contracts from Boeing and Lockheed Martin, who are almost government companies in terms of how they work, and then start ferrying people to space and all this stuff. It's a crazy thing. It's just lucky. It's not. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. It's just think we're just very lucky, and it's like, should we cut the NASA budget and then hope and pray that like some investors are gonna throw in some money behind some guy who happens to be incredibly intelligent and charismatic, and like hope that succeeds, and like that's our new space strategy? Like it's a big gamble if you think about it.
I mean, I think it might have taken more time, but I think it would have been inevitable for somebody to try to take that market, even if it wasn't Musk, even if it wasn't Bezos. I think eventually somebody would have stepped into that market space.
I mean, eventually maybe, but you don't. Who knows? That's all I'm saying is like you're taking a huge gamble.
People as a collective are usually pretty efficient at finding money where it's hiding.
Yeah, I don't know. All right.
Like I think just like with Airbnb, I think if Airbnb hadn't existed, eventually somebody would have created an Airbnb like thing.
Yeah, but that's easily doable. It's just a website.
I mean,
it's just a mobile app.
I mean, just because the startup costs are, a million times higher or whatever, doesn't. I mean, I think that's just market friction, but time erodes that.
yeah, but that's I mean, it's like, okay, so if you're like, so how does Blue Origin start? It's because Jeff Bezos has a shitload of money, and he can literally afford to pay for it out of his personal pocket.
Right, but lots of people have shitloads of money.
Right. And then in order to increase that shitload of money they have, they invest in other companies who make a lot of money, and they make a lot of money right now. Like, they invest in companies like well, you brought up Airbnb. I don't know how much money they make, but I'm sure they're profitable. So they invest in companies that make money right now. Does SpaceX make money right now? Do they make, or if you're an investor, you're getting 100-fold return on your investment within the next 5 years? Probably not. So you have to get together people who are investors who are also visionary, and who are willing to take the gamble to do like this is a long play. This isn't like a short, I'm gonna double my money or anything like that. So I'm just saying, it's when you take that and you compare it to, let's cut the funding off NASA, that looks like a huge gamble to me. That we're lucky. I think we're astronomically lucky that we're even where we're at right now. It could easily be we could have no space presence at all. Like, if they just cut NASA's budget and said, screw it, we'll like let the market do it. I think we're just really lucky that where we're at.
I see.
That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying like it's not eventually inevitable. I'm just saying we're lucky that we happen to get like these two guys, because there have been other companies that have tried to do this and failed. I'm sure these aren't the first two. So
I mean, I guess I don't think that we have any shortage of visionaries. I think, and I mean, I guess we're going around in circles, but yeah. I think we assign different probabilities to this event happening without these two players, and I think that's the fundamental difference.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
So what do we have next?
So moving on to more visionary stuff.
Jesus Christ.
So this is interesting. So we keep talking about Hyperloop once in a while. I think it actually got a little more realistic, and the reason for that is Richard Branson, who is the CEO guy of the Virgin Group. He actually invested in Hyperloop One. So
what's the new name of this?
Virgin Hyperloop One.
good.
Yeah. So he's one of those visionary CEO type guys. He also tried to do like a space venture called Virgin Galactic, which is kind of cool. I like the name, at least, like Galactic. But he made his money on like the Virgin music record stores, which are defunct as far as I know. But
and he owns a Virgin Mobile, right?
Yeah, I think so. But that's good.
And then Virgin Airlines.
Yeah, of course. But yeah. So then with the Virgin Airlines, like, he just started that up. He was like, we have all these record stores. I don't like flying the way it's done now. Let's start our own airline. So, but it is good because, like, I mean, he's like a real person who does have experience with big bets, and he has had some successful ones, like running a record company and then pivoting that into an airline, if you will. So
yeah, no big deal.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And we got the link for that. It's just kind of more of an announcement, but
yeah. So we've mentioned this many times. Hyperloop, Columbus, one of the options.
Yep. Chicago, Columbus, Pittsburgh. Oh, it'd be so great. It's like it'd almost be as good as getting the Amazon headquarters here.
Yeah. And here's one of the biggest advantages, I think, of the Hyperloop. So you're in Chicago. You're like, my schooling system sucks. I have to learn programming to get out of here. And so what you do is you're like, I need to get out of here really quickly. So you take the Hyperloop, and in 30 minutes you're in Columbus. Never have to go back to Chicago.
Or maybe you want to take a vacation from the weather in Chicago, so you head down to Columbus, where it's, in comparison, normally balmy. So
no, okay. Seriously, though, Chicago's weather's awful.
Yeah. They don't call it the Windy City for nothing. And I hate wind. So, okay. So we got another kind of big topic, and then this kind of actually bridges community a little bit, because you can talk about going to the Rise of the Rest.
Sure.
Thing, but so there's an article in TechCrunch that I thought was pretty interesting. I agreed with some of the things. I disagreed with one big one, and we could I can like quote that one here, but maybe if you want to start with your experience this past Friday at the I actually had a ticket, but couldn't go because I had I ended up having other plans. But maybe you could talk about some of the stats that they mentioned and how the event went. Like, just talk about. Like,
yeah, so I think it'll make more sense if you launch into the topic and then I intersperse my comments.
Okay.
Just to get background though, most of my comments are coming from the former CTO, the third CTO of the United States. This was the CTO under President Obama.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm getting my numbers and getting sort of the how the government feels and how I guess the people, quote unquote, feel about Silicon Valley.
Sure. So the article came out and it's pretty critical of the tech, like Silicon Valley in general. One of the quotes was, "In case you haven't noticed, though," and this is talking about Silicon Valley in general, "you've changed from hero to villain. You're too expensive and exclusive for the rest of the world. The garages that gave us Hewlett-Packard and Google and Apple now cost millions of dollars. You moved from Icon to Joke. The show that bears your name, which is a funny show, is cringeworthy and true-to-life satire. You and I'm going to continue on with this because this is another good piece for the quote. You're churning out companies that are raising hundreds of millions of dollars and going bankrupt in literal satires of themselves. A $700 million blood testing company that never had any actual results. A $120 million juicer with packets that can actually be squeezed by hand." So, what this article was pretty critical of is that the capital, the investment opportunities, all this stuff is becoming increasingly exclusive to the rest of the United States. And as you can maybe mention this
yeah,
statistic.
sure.
Real quick.
Just running through how venture capital is spread through the United States, or more accurately, how it's not. 75% of all capital is concentrated in 3 states in the country, those being New York, Texas, and California. 50% of all capital is just in California. So out of all venture capital spent, more than 50% is just spent in California, and obviously we know the areas where it's mostly spent, right? Silicon Valley, San Francisco, etc.
Yeah.
I guess I'm talking fast, so I'll try to not run through the numbers so much.
Yeah.
Ohio, despite the fact that we have 3% of the population and some change of the U.S., we get a little under 1% of all venture capital.
Yep.
So if you think about it, proportionally, person per person, we get 1/15 of what California gets for venture capital.
Yeah.
Which is ridiculous.
Right. So, and some of those things, I mean, some of that obviously contributes to wealth inequality in the United States too. I don't know if now I've set a good enough background, but I guess I could talk about this the rise of the rest. So some guys, and you can look this up. It's called Rise, RISE, of the Rest. Pretty much some guys who are VCs, and then the guy who J.D. Vance, who wrote Hillbilly Elegy, which is a great book.
Yeah, the guy who actually leads Rise of the Rest is Steve Case, who's a venture capitalist.
Yeah,
he was the founder of AOL.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yep. So together, basically, they've had some concerns with other areas of the United States being left out of this more or less lucrative money making machine and investment, and then they're driving a bus around. I know I'm kind of being flippant here with what I'm saying, but it's what they're doing.
Yeah, I actually saw the bus on my way out.
Yeah, it's a good idea, but they're driving a bus around more or less the Midwest and Great Lakes region. So, and then this Friday they came to Columbus, and J.D. Vance actually relocated to Columbus, so he lives here now, which is kind of cool. So he was working for an investment firm.
Yeah, he was
in
working
San Francisco, or at least in Silicon Valley.
Yeah, he was working under Peter Thiel.
Oh, I didn't even know that. That's cool.
Yeah,
I'm a big Peter Thiel fan. But yeah, so this past Friday they had a pitch competition for $100,000. I think they had 8 or 10 finalists. Do you remember what the?
I don't.
But they were all more or less local startups. I mean, like local in terms of like Columbus local, not like Ohio local.
Yeah,
but
they were very, very specific. I mean, it's not, some of the people there were people we have met during Startup Weekend.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. So, I guess where we're going with this is that you have all this money out in like Silicon Valley and New York, for example, but they've also turned out some really dumb ideas, and they're kind of like just throwing money at stuff just to throw money at it. And at the other end of the spectrum, you have like people who may have great ideas here in a city like Columbus who don't have access to the capital, but they could easily. So Columbus, according to the Kauffman Foundation, is like the #1 city in the country for scaling startups. So why aren't some of those investors coming here and saying, okay, well, there aren't just great ideas in 1 or 2 places in the country or even the world. Like, why don't we come here to a city like Columbus or even, Pittsburgh or something and say, hey, you guys have some ideas. Here's some money. Try to scale those ideas. So, but maybe you could talk about the pitch competition, like how that went, or maybe some other interesting facts that you saw, or things that you saw, I guess.
Yeah, sure. I guess the most interesting thing for me was the panel discussion where not only was Steve Case and J.D. Vance there, they also brought in, as I mentioned earlier, the CTO of the the former CTO of the United States.
Yeah.
And I guess I just wanted to bring this in because I think it dovetails. One of the reasons I think this article alludes to is they talk about the culture of Silicon Valley being sort of not ideal.
Yeah.
And one of the things the thing that the CTO called out in particular is she said that Silicon Valley has a major sexism problem. And of all the other places on the Rise of the Rest tour, if you want to be successful like Silicon Valley, she said you need to be like Silicon Valley essentially, but without the sexism.
Yeah. Yeah, and then the TechCrunch article, they talk about, so less than 5% of new ideas that are getting funded or founded by women, and just abysmal, but less than 1% of venture funding. 1% of all venture funding goes to Latinos and African Americans, right? But like white people and men in particular, like, don't have a monopoly on good ideas, and people in Silicon Valley don't have a monopoly on good ideas. So, what the hell, right?
Yeah. And I mean, I think this is a big problem, and I'm not exactly sure how to.
And it certainly exacerbates all the wealth inequality we're experiencing in the country right now too. It definitely doesn't help.
Yeah, it certainly doesn't, and I think it's not an easy problem to fix,
right?
Because I mean, I've seen some proposed solutions and how they played out. Like the big one I know of is this push. There was a push to get women, or to involve women more in VC work, and establish a bunch of firms that were 50% female VCs.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the results panned out really poorly for that, because female. I'm not sure how you should phrase this. I guess
female VCs or female investors.
I guess woman VCs are less likely to fund women than men, whereas men. So if you do it gender blind.
Yeah, men
are about equal on funding men or women on their ideas, but women are less likely to fund women than men.
Yeah, and then on top of that, you have, again, very few women even getting funding. Period. And then they try to have a solution that appears to not be working.
So I mean, it seems like a very hard problem to solve.
Yeah. One quote that I liked, or one thing that I disagreed with actually from the article, was that. So this is a fantastic book. It's called 0 to 1, written by Peter Thiel. And he says, competition is for losers, be a monopoly. In terms of business strategy, that's what you should aim for. Like, you'd have to be stupid not to. Like, you shouldn't, you want to be a monopoly. You want to have the best product. You want to make the most money. That's your goal as a business, right? And so what they said was, and then, the average venture capitalist portfolio will have like 20 companies, 19 are like losers, and one's a grand slam. And then it says, follow that to its logical conclusion. For every billionaire, you're okay with 19 broke people. Now, I have a fundamental problem with that, and that's because you can't fundamentally fund 20 successful companies. Like like not every company can succeed. Like, there's just simply isn't a market for that, right? So that comment I thought in the article was kind of just stupid, because it's just contradictory. Like, not everybody gets a gold star, right?
Yeah. Now, and I mean, if you're entering into the startup market, you have to know, like, this is
vast majority of companies fail. That's and not just startups, companies, period. Like, no matter what where you are, the vast majority fail. I mean, that's the way the world works.
Yeah, the mean startup founder I think gets about the median startup founder gets about $400,000.
Yeah.
The mean startup founder gets zero
Yeah.
at the end of everything.
Yeah. And so now to take this, maybe abstract it out a little bit, I think what we're seeing in the country as a whole is that investors are betting on three companies, right? They're looking at the California company and the New York company, but there's an entire rest of the country that they could be funding and could be getting, like you'd be taking Peter Thiel's advice, if you will, which I think is the right advice, and doing what VCs tend to do, which is fund a lot of companies and try to get that one big bet so that they get the most, they get the highest returns. But they're actually not even doing that. They're just like, if you take and look at it as a country as a whole, they're just funding like a couple of super centers. So like Boston's included in that too and whatever. But they're funding like these super centers instead of actually spreading out their bets. Again, New York and San Francisco, I mean, they're both great cities. I like it out there, to either one, but like they do not have a monopoly on good ideas. And like you have the investors funding dumb ass ideas like this stupid, juicer machine, which was all over the news. People were making fun of it because it was a really dumb idea. Versus, I don't know, maybe funding a company in a city like Columbus where instead of spending $150 million on this one juicing company, they could have spent $1 million on the 10 companies that went to the Rise of the Rest pitch competition. Like, what do you think is going to make more money, right? Like, they're not actually following through with what is logical for them to actually be doing. So,
I mean, I do think to some extent it's probably a convenience thing, just because
and the ego is another huge part of it.
Yeah, and for those of you who don't know, if you take the top 1% of area in the U.S., it holds like 85% of all wealth. Yeah. So if you take like New York City, SF, Seattle, etc., you take just the top percent of land mass of the country,
yeah,
which ends up being like 40% of the population,
yeah,
or 30% or something,
right?
Because it's pretty dense. That percentage has almost all of the money.
Yeah, like it's not good. It's not good for wealth inequality, right? Okay, well, I think we beat that pretty hard.
Well, Eric, should we move on to the feature?
I think so. We've got it's funny, but not funny.
It's kind of funny.
Yeah. So well, to get on one of my, I guess, my pet peeves. So a lot of people think the United States is like really, really racist. Some of that's definitely deserved, without a doubt, right? But in my travels, I've seen racism everywhere. I've seen racism in Paris. I've seen racism in South Korea. I've seen racism in, I don't know, like everywhere I've been, people are being racist, like in like Belgium and stuff, for example. And so this whole notion that like the United States is like this big racist white supremacist megatopia is basically just not true. And especially when you look at the rest of the world is pretty racist. And to go on to that, some countries such as Austria, France. Paris is, I don't know, when I think France, that's the first thing that comes to my mind. So France, and I think there's like one or two other countries who have done this, but what they've done is they've banned the burka. So in case you don't know, for our listeners, the burka is like a veil that covers your face except your eyes. So a woman who under some Islamic traditions or cultural whatever, they just wear like they're completely covered, and only their eyes are shown, so they have their face covered. So countries like Austria have banned that, right? So, but instead of banning just the burqa, which I think is what France did, I think they just outright banned just that. But in Austria, they banned covering your like full face. So a PR agency went and they had a guy go to like the mall and dress up as a shark. So he's wearing a shark costume and he has like the shark head on, he got fined 150 euros for like wearing this shark thing because it's like banned under the burka law. So I thought that was really funny. And even the PR agency said they did that because they wanted to make a stunt to make it socially relevant. Fortunately, the U.S. is not stooped so low as to just ban like you people for wearing things. Of course, on the other hand, I'm not a big fan of burkas, but if somebody voluntarily is choosing to wear that, that's fine. Obviously, that's not always the case, but or it may be. Who knows? But like they basically have to ban something like Halloween here because like people can't wear masks now. Like it's really stupid.
So I think in the U.S. this would never happen. There's too many people who really like the idea of freedom too much that you can't push something like this in the U.S.
Right. No, people like some conservatives have like called for it, but even conservatives aren't like big fans of this because it's like anti-freedom more or less.
Well, yeah. The thing is, liberals and conservatives disagree on a lot of things,
right?
But generally, the group in the middle, like when in doubt, they tend to side. I think
they err on the side of liberty.
Yeah, which doesn't happen in all countries.
Yep.
And I think that's why you won't ever see something like this pass, because 40% of the population is never enough to pass a vote. I mean, you could maybe pass something like this in Mississippi, but then the places where you could pass something like this.
Yeah, are
places where there's not a large Muslim population, anyways.
Yeah. So, but I thought that was funny, and then I mean, this is kind of hard because like we're obviously going to agree on this, but it's just like you're just banning people from wearing masks more or less. It's like who are you to say what people should be able to wear? Like it's rooted in like this idea that any woman who is a Muslim that's wearing a burqa is automatically being like, I don't know, like made to do that and all this stuff. But I mean, there's a lot of Muslim women want to wear that too. So
to be fair, I do think it's mostly true that that if you're wearing a full burqa, you don't really have a choice in the matter.
Yeah,
you are being compelled.
Yeah, but I can't say that it's true in all cases too. So I'm not going to say we'll ban this funny looking costume because it's a symbol of oppression. It's like, well, in the United States, a woman can just take it off. And then if somebody has a problem with that and then they try to do something, then we call the police and the police says, hey, this is America. People don't have to wear stuff they don't want to have to wear. And that's the end of the story.
What happens though, if you have if your entire community, like everyone you interact with is a part of this group and tacitly supports your oppression.
Yeah, well, then you're gonna have to disavow yourself of that group. I'm not saying it's like fun or easy, but I see no difference versus there's a huge problem still with like in like more predominantly Christian families or Christian communities. If you have somebody who comes out as gay, they're shunned by the entire community, and they're not even wearing anything. They're just saying, I'm gay, for example, right? So it still happens, and I think the appropriate response is never to ban. Well, almost never to ban something. It's to say, yes, you have a harder life, and we feel unfortunate. That's unfortunate. Let's hopefully have some sort of social support structure for that, because they do have centers and advocacy groups for people who maybe they come out as like LGBT, and they can go there and get help and like get counseling and et cetera, and then they're gonna have to disavow their family. I mean, that's it. Like, you can't, like, if my entire family was full of a bunch of racists, I wouldn't talk to them, and like that would be a big loss for me. Like, I would lose all these relationships and stuff I had. But like at some point, that's a personal decision you have to make. So
right, but I think that's definitely a conversation people need to have. People need to realize that it's not cost free to take it off. When you say people can just take it off, that's not necessarily the case.
You literally can. I'm just saying that there are consequences to doing it. But
you can also literally just like be openly gay,
right? But there in some communities, unfortunately, there are consequences to that. And
I think I think most people in the U.S. realize that there are consequences to being gay, as unfortunate as that is. But they may not realize that there are consequences to sort of going against the modern interpretation of the religion, which, I mean, if you don't mind me going on a tangent for a bit,
go ahead.
It's worth noting that the covering yourself up and being modest, that's a very I guess it's a very specific cultural interpretation of the Quran that's relatively.
I mean, Amish women are don't cover their face, but they're
Well-
like they're not walking around in like shorts and a t-shirt.
Well, what I'm saying is this is a relatively modern Islamic interpretation. You can look at countries like Iran, pictures from them of like you can look
Or
at
even Afghanistan. That's a really good case. Like Kabul was, girls are going to school and they looked like Western.
Yeah.
Quote, I'm doing air quotes here. Western women of the time.
Yeah, so like pre-World War One, the Middle East generally was not nearly as oppressive to women. This is a relatively modern thing.
Yeah.
And even in Indonesia, which is almost entirely Sunni, you would think that they would resemble the oppressive Sunni regime of Saudi Arabia, but women are, I guess, significantly less modest. I don't know if that's the appropriate word to use here, but they're less covered.
Right.
And so it is worth noting that this is a specific modern interpretation of the religion.
Yeah.
That is culturally enforced.
Yep. So, it's a bucket of worms in general because there's a whole bunch of problems around it. I guess going back to like the burka in general. But again, I think banning it isn't the right answer because it's just like it's like you're punishing everybody for the mistakes of some. So there are some groups who they want to do that, and like, okay, if that's what you want to do, but obviously there are groups where people are being oppressed. So I just don't agree with banning that kind of stuff. So
I will provide the caveat though that it does make sense to prohibit wearing things that cover your face in places where it's important to be able to see your face.
Yeah, absolutely. The whole idea of like wearing that for your driver's license, like, well, why don't I just wear why don't I wear a shark mask, right? That's obviously outrageous. And if you want to, that's the way United States works. Like, that's what you have to do. Like, you have to show your face in your driver's license. So if you want to and it's a license. So if you want to own and operate a car, that's what you got to do. Deal with it.
Driver's license, passport, going to the bank, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's about it for us, Eric. All right. You have anything else?
Nope. Other than stay alive, don't drink and drive, go to Highball, have fun, and feel confident that as you wear a mask at Highball, you will not get fined 150 euros.
Yeah. I thank everybody for joining us. Hope to see you at Highball. And this has been Columbus This Week.
See ya.
Bye.